Welcome to Mershman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, hear about soil compaction and what you can do to maintain field potential, which tools are best for your operation. Ben summarizes an article from Iowa State University about SCN-resistant soybean varieties and genes. Lynn is getting questions on corn from a rootworm standpoint. Hear Lynn's recommendations. And everyone at Mershman Seeds hopes you had a great Thanksgiving.
Welcome to Mershman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Turk and Lynn, and we are going to get started off with Lynn. What hit your fancy this week?
Yeah, so AgWeb had come out with their daily email, and one that really caught my attention this week is Ferrie had a article in there talking about the importance of getting rid of compaction. And, you know, very, very in tune with what Ken has to say. I think he brings a lot of awesome agronomic advice when it comes to the different aspects of the growing season. So this one is one very relevant to right now. We have harvest wrapping up in most of our viewing area and turning our attention to tillage. And the part that I thought was interesting from one of his studies, he was seeing in between, I think it was like 7 to 20 bushel difference on getting rid of that compaction layer, the density zone in the soil. So just to kind of synopsis that a little bit, what we're looking for is as we're doing tillage, get your shovel out and make sure that your tillage equipment is doing a good job. And then, and B, is find out where that either compacted zone or density layer that we're dealing with, because what we want to do is we want to knock that out when we have the opportunity to do so going across the field.
In that article too, wasn't he kind of talking about, you know, some of the things that we do with deep tillage to get ready to be set up for a vertical tillage style operation, right?
Correct.
Because to get into true vertical tillage where you're not moving dirt left and right, or you're not using a field cultivator to sweeps, you know, you want to get rid of that, those compaction layers before you run to a truly vertical tillage system where you're moving very little dirt.
Correct. So yeah, you know, for the folks that are going to what I would say a minimum till setup, like what today we would call a vertical tillage machine, or even no-till. If you're going to transition to the no-till stuff, we have to make sure that we have that compacted zone taken care of, especially in the vertical till scenario, that once we have the opportunity to get rid of that, you know, maybe we can get by as long as we're minding our P's and Q's by not having a density layer that's going to cause some issues with root development. The biggest thing I think personally from being no-till and going out there and looking is that as we have upped our game and equipment size, we're putting a lot of weight out there in the soil. So what we have to be really cognizant of is our machines are operating at the correct weather conditions, field conditions. And the other one is when we talk about going into these types of situations, is finding out where that density zone is because what I made the assumption of, and I'm guilty of, was, oh yeah, it's probably 2-3 inches down, not that big of a deal. We'll go out and, you know, we'll take the field cultivator on coming out of CRP and we'll burn it down, and the next year we'll just field cultivate, we'll take it out. No, actually that ended up being 8 to 12 inches on that. Basically where the disc from way back then left a layer, and when you're planting and you're digging, everything looks good, the field cultivator all looks good. What happens when you go in and investigate the roots, you find out where that density layer or that compacted zone is. So this goes back to even probably last summer, spring, summer, taking a look at your roots on your plants, evaluating it. Corn, I think, is the easiest one to take a look at, just because we're talking a lot bigger volume, but soybeans will tell us just as well too. So we have a good opportunity right now. For most of the area, we're probably a little bit on the drier side, which tends to lead to better conditions to go in and fracture that soil. We're not going in and smearing and having basically moving that layer from, if we're going after, you know, say an 8-inch layer, now we're going to move it down to 12. We have just really good conditions in most of our area to take care of that. And I've seen it. I think I've seen more inline rippers out in fields than I have in the last 10 years. So guys are going in that are specifically vertical till proponents or have the machines and are going in and taking care of some deeper compactions. And I look for those guys to have really, really good yields next year. Better water infiltration, talking potentially getting some more of those mobile nutrients a little bit further down in the soil profile, getting a more robust soil profile from a fertilization standpoint. Just a lot of benefits when it comes to that, and we're in a point right now where we have the ability to take care of some of those issues. So if you have some time, and when you're not ordering seed, or after you order seed, to take care of that, it's a good opportunity.
Yep, and I think one of the unique things that he talks about in that article too, that they have a whole vertical till and getting set up to handle vertical tillage. I think there's like 4 or 5 different articles on it. And when he's talking vertical tillage, I think he's typically talking less than a 3-degree angle on your coulter angles.
Correct.
So some of the guys that claim they have vertical tillage tools and are out running at 6, 7, 8%, you're actually doing more side-to-side movement.
Correct.
And that's
You're
something
disking,
that, fancy discs.
Correct.
And you're moving stuff left and right, and you're seeing a little bit more residue. You're burying the residue, but you're moving a little bit more dirt to get things worked down. That's not necessarily the same vertical tillage that he's talking about, because anytime when you're moving more than a 3% gang angle, you're not doing vertical fracture. You are actually creating that layer
Correct.
that he's worried about.
Correct.
So I know that I was talking when we went to strip till, and we went with the coultered machine to give us a little bit more diversity, if we can't get something all done in the fall, where a shank machine works really, really nice. You have the option to use vertical tillage through strip till with the coulters in the spring. It gives us a little bit more versatility, and I think it's very, very true too when you're looking at whether it be a turbo till style vertical tillage machine. You get as much fracture as the depth that you're going down. So when you're pushing down on that, you're actually fracturing below. When you don't have a gang angle, it's not making a smear
Correct.
point. So if our coulter machine on our Soil Warrior is pushing down 12 inches, that manufacturer claims that they can actually get 24-inch fracture below that point. The same thing is true when you're running a turbo till style vertical tillage tool that does the light tillage. If you're keeping it in line, you're actually getting fracture underneath that, but you can't have that gang angle. I think that's so key. You can't have that gang angle set at a point, otherwise you're going to have density change, and you're going to have those roots that go horizontal before they go
Correct.
back down, and that takes energy in that corn plant to do that.
And I think what we have to train ourselves, you and I are coming from the same camp. Turk was a little ahead of the game, but fall, it's got to be black. You got to turn it black. And when we go to these type of systems, that's not the necessary end result that we're looking for. We're looking for that. If we get a little bit of angle to throw some residue to hairpin, not hairpin, but to keep the residue down, so that way it's not blowing into the ditch, that is an okay procedure. But if we're thinking we're going to go out here with a vertical till and make it look like a chiseled ground, that's not the intention. That when Ken, back when the video we had posted, I think a couple episodes ago, when the inception of vertical till, that wasn't the intention. These are very intentional tools, and I think the nice part with all this is that every system, every tool has its place. What we just want to make sure is if you're using a ripper, or if you're using a vertical till, field cultivator, whatever your system is that works for you, make sure you're using it in the aspect that it is doing the most good for your operation and the way that the tool was designed to be made. Not saying that the manufacturers have caused a disservice by adding larger gang angles and whatnot, but they're trying to make a very, very versatile tool, and they're very versatile. But just make sure that if your operation needs to have that true vertical tillage, that we run the minimum amount of gang angle on our vertical tills, and make sure we get that horizontal or get that vertical fracture, not a horizontal fracture.
And you may have to be dealing with extra residue management.
Correct.
Too. So
that's an awesome point.
That's where those gang angles can help you manage that.
Yep, it's a different. They're all different mindsets,
yep.
And you just have to make sure that you're managing your agronomic wherewithal, you're managing your expectation when it comes to this. Because like what the article said, when looking at a horizontal tillage style, the plot did like 230, which for most of our folks, 230 sounds awesome. But when they take it to the step and use it in the vertical style, 267 I think was the yield result. So I don't think anybody would complain about having 30 more bushel of corn. So very good article, like I said, going into the time of year where we're using these tools just to make sure that our tools are working the way they need to be working, and we're using the tools at our disposal in the way that provides the best ROI return for our growers.
Yep. Ken does a really nice job dealing with this subject, so I encourage everybody to go to his website and look that over.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I had here kind of ties back. This is a November article from Greg Taylka, Dr. Greg Taylka, which is the SCN specialist for the Iowa State University. They had two different locations on this Crop 1649 publication that they pushed. They had a Sheridan, Iowa, and a Melrose, Iowa, and they were comparing SCN resistance versus SCN susceptible varieties, so soybean, cyst, nematode, different varieties. And when they're talking resistant versus susceptible, I imagine it doesn't specifically come out and say this, but I assume that's effective PI88788 genes or the new Peking style genes. When that's what they're talking about, a resistant, and a susceptible product would be a product that doesn't have a PI88788. And a good example of that, back when we first launched our Jeffersons, our 19 or 20 series Jeffersons didn't have a PI88788 gene. So there are beans out there that don't have the SCN gene in them. But when they're looking at that, the end of the year result was that in Sheridan, Iowa, it was 55 bushel for the resistant, and the susceptible was 40, so there's a 15 bushel gain there. And Melrose is 52 bushel per acre with the resistant and 46 with the susceptible, so that puts that one at about an 8 bushel advantage there. So there's big advantages when we are managing our SCN population. We do that here at Merschmann's with Peking varieties. We have our Osage, which is our 20 series beans. We're going to have 2 new beans launching for full launch this coming year. And for the 25 sales season, we're going to have a 3.3 and another 2.5, and an improved version of what that Osage is going to be. But we also use products like Saltro and Chernimco, which gives us 3 different modes of action for protection against SCN. But what I think was really remarkable, when we look at the egg counts in the SCN resistance classes on both of those different locations, the resistance were actually keeping the population subdued down to a level that probably is causing a little bit of a yield hit at that 2,400 eggs per 100 cc of soil, and 1,700. Those are kind of in that moderate, that 2,600 or the 2,400 is kind of getting to that point where you're probably seeing a little bit, a bushel or two take off from the SCN. But when you compare that to the susceptible, where they're at 20,000 and 11,000 egg count for 100 cc of soil, it's a big difference, and you know you're getting yield loss. Obviously, in that first instance, the 15 bushel per acre with there's a 15 bushel per acre spread with 20,000 eggs per 100 cc of soil. You know, I mean, that's the levels that it's really hurting, and those are the areas that you really need to be diving into. Which brings me to the next point. When you're out soil sampling in the fall, taking nice soil cores in the line, in the roots, in the root zone of that soybean plant is probably a good idea to know where those levels are at. If you have a field that is just struggling for some reason, based off history, if the beans are stunted, if they're a little bit more yellow, that's something that you should definitely be looking at and pulling cores to see if that is the silent yield robber that you're not sure of. Because in 99 out of 100 cases, I can't go walk out into a field and tell you that we are seeing SCN here. That's what's causing this plant to be a little bit shorter. Typically, we're looking at nitrogen. We're looking at too much rain, not enough rain, covers that are keeping a lack of moisture and nutrients to going into the plant. So
potash deficiency.
Yep. I mean, there's so many other things that we're looking at. The SCN kind of trails off to the backside, but it's something we need to think about. Midwest Labs can do those tests. Iowa State can do those tests. University of Illinois is actually doing them for free, so no charge for the customers in Illinois that want to turn those in. I highly recommend that that's something that you do to figure out where your levels are at. And then you can kind of judge whether it's something that you need to do every year, or if it's something that we can make seed treatment recommendations or variety recommendations, because Greg's recommendation, Dr. Taylka's recommendation, is to go corn, Peking, corn, PI88, 788, and then continue that 4-year rotation, because we can actually heavily reduce with a Peking variety. We can reduce the amount of eggs that are in that soil because they can't reproduce on that style of plant. So
yeah, some of our progressive guys are already, they're taking an 80 acre every year and they're throwing a Peking bean at it and trying to get ahead of this. Because one thing that stood out to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Melrose, Iowa is not a place that I would consider, just looking at the map, and if you Googled it and some of the soil properties, I guess, geographic properties they have over there, it's not something that I would be on the forefront of my mind to think that SCN would be that big of a yield robber. But obviously,
we think of Fruitland,
Correct.
Iowa, because that's where they always have had these 19,000, 20,000 heavy sands, where you have not only SCN, but you have a whole bunch of other nematodes in that style of soil. So you are correct. That did stand out to me as well. So, because Fruitland is where they do their test every year, and that's where the Pekings all fly towards the top, and the PI88, 788s are all kind of bouncing out.
The running joke is the ground is literally moving because SCN pops are so high.
It's also important to remember that if you are using a Peking variety and you're beans on beans, don't do it 2 years in a row, because the Pekings will develop resistance faster than the PI88 ever did.
Correct. Nope, you're absolutely correct. And try to get wheat in that rotation if you're a bean on bean style customer, where the double crop is something that works. I know we don't have the article sitting in front of us, but like the university, I guess, Turk, why don't you talk about what they're projecting on corn versus bean acres are, and the profitability on either side of that?
Well, right now, because the profitability with soybeans are showing a higher rate or a higher return on investment, this year with the price of soybeans where they are and the price of corn where it is, they're looking for about a 3 million acre increase in soybeans and a 3 million acre decrease in corn, approximately 2.5 to 3. So if that's the case, it's even more important to be thinking about what we're talking about here.
Correct. Yep. So, University of Illinois did a nice job last year talking about how double crop is potentially more profitable on the sub 200 bushel corn ground, and I'd like to see some continued articles out on that. I know that Iowa State's working on that data right now, because we helped commission one in Southeast Iowa on the Southeast Iowa Regional Research Farm. And I look forward to getting the data back on what that looks like for some of our ultra early wheat lines in combination with double crop soybeans. So
yeah, we're going to do our part by offering these ultra early, hyper early type products to be able to help that out. But no, I think you're exactly right. On the Peking side, that we have the ability to manage this from a different perspective with the Pekings. Let's not burn that technology before it ever really gets a chance to get off the ground here, because there are a lot of really awesome products coming out of the MS technology pipeline with the Peking attached to it.
I totally agree. The other thing that, Lynn, you said we wanted to kind of hit on just a little bit is that we're getting questions, and this is the time of year where guys are making decisions on corn from a rootworm standpoint. What are your kind of your thoughts, or what are some of the recommendations you're making to customers right now?
Yeah, so getting a lot of questions on as we're talking about double pros, the power core varieties, some corn on corn guys that are a little bit concerned on what the rootworm or lack of rootworm control is with the power core and some of the other product offerings that are in the marketplace. So I think the biggest one is just go get your soil tested. We're talking about doing it with soybean cyst. This works right along the same way with rootworm. I think Iowa State will do it. There's products through Pattern Ag has their product out there that they claim is virtually. It's a money back guarantee. It sounds like from in the conversations I've had with some growers with it. So those two options, when we look at that from a cost per acre standpoint, very attractive to look at versus planting a Duracade, a Chrome, Smart Sax Pro. When we look at those products, very good technology, but very, very expensive technology. So if we go and we do the counts and we see that, we either have which I'm guessing in most cases are probably going to be a 0 egg count. I mean, your ground, for example, that you took out to Pattern Ag and had them look at it, I mean, came back 0 egg count. So those are good opportunities there to, I look at it 2 fronts. We're probably saving a little bit of money from a cost standpoint. And then, we're also kind of saving some technology back that we will use that when that time comes and be able to take care of the rootworms if there's actual problem, rather than just throw the technology out there and hope for the best. So right now, I recommend going out and getting some rootworm counts from an egg standpoint in the soil and seeing if you need to make that decision. If it's not cost prohibitive for you to go that route at all in comparison to what the per acre cost of upgrading to the Duracade, Chrome, SmartStax Pro looks like. So, and then, like I said, at the end of the day, if you don't have any eggs, you can't have a rootworm problem. And what we found, I would say anecdotally from last year, Dylan did some testing on traps, and I'm real curious on some of these areas where we saw the mature beetles flying around, but then the tests are showing that they might have flew in to feed, but they didn't lay their eggs there. So I think it's really good to have this look, and then also to keep monitoring your corn on corn acres for the actual adults, because it's kind of a symbiotic relationship there, that if you have the adults, there's a good chance you're going to have the eggs. So just don't make the assumption because you didn't see any adults that you don't have any eggs, and don't make the assumption that because you saw a lot of adults that you have a lot of eggs in the profile there, because we're finding that to be not necessarily true. Like I said, once again, anecdotally, they like green. I had a lot of rootworm in my CRP, which is kind of odd to think about, but when we get in situations where maybe the crop has already started senescence and they're on the second wave, they're just trying to find some more green to hang out. So I'm really worried about my corn rootworm and my CRP, so hopefully the grass holds on there.
That's right. Another tool to use there is, I know you can go to the Pattern Ag website and they can spit you out a report on where the hot spots are. It doesn't get you down to the field level by any means, but it gets you a regional look at it. University of Illinois also has maps where they break the state out into 6 or 8 different quadrants, and they give you kind of pressure levels and sticky trap levels from that too, kind of from a 30,000 foot view of, okay, these are where the hot spots are at, these are where they're not. So those are two also very good resources to look at to see if you are in a hot spot area. For sure, because if your neighbors are having problems, it's probably just a matter of time before you do. So I'll be frank, there's no excuse. We have so many tools in our toolbox. I know you love that saying, but it's a very minimal investment to take a look at that and see. And really, we're getting to the point now, any pest. I mean, SCN, same boat. Rootworm, there's more than one company now doing something similar to Pattern Ag, going out and taking a look at the DNA in the soil. So we can really hairpin this down to be pretty exact and have ourselves set up for the most defensive, or the ability to play defense against some of these pests that we can have in probably the history of farming. And that seems like it changes every year, so. Completely agree. Turk, you got anything else for this week?
Going into holiday trade, don't be surprised if we see some wide swings in the trade, because a lot of traders have went home, and so the ones that stick around sometimes can move the market. And so don't get excited if you see big swings, because when the traders get back next week, they'll settle things out.
Yeah, and Lynn failed to tell all of our viewers that he did sell beans, and that's why we've had a very nice bullish rally the past week and a half here.
I set the floor so everyone else can benefit from the ceiling. So if you haven't marketed your beans yet, look for that to continue to go up. This is not trading advice, and I am not a trader by any means. I can just tell you anecdotally, I normally find the low.
There we go. You gonna take us out?
Yeah, so in honor of Thanksgiving, I have been left with a few Thanksgiving jokes. So we are gonna really end this one on a high note. They're good, but they're They're bad.
They're good dad jokes.
Oh, they're great dad jokes. What sound does a turkey's phone make?
No idea.
Wing wing.
Because it has wings.
Yep. So why do pilgrims' pants always fall down?
Don't know if I want to know.
Because they wear their belt buckle on their hat.
I see.
And this one being my favorite part of Thanksgiving, hanging out with family and all that, that's overrated. Football is where it's at. Thanksgiving dinners take 18 hours to prepare. They're consumed in 12 minutes. The average halftime of a football game is 12 minutes. This is not a coincidence.
There we go. Perfect. Well, we hope everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving and had a chance to take a break. I hope all the crops are out in your area if you want them to be. And we will catch you guys next week. Thanks for viewing.